It is our quality time interview with Jodi Stover, the head volleyball coach with the Neodesha volleyball team. And coach, appreciate your time. And as we get into, closing in and getting into the month of October, like what type of developments are you trying to see from your team? Like what do you want to see from your team now that you've had a decent chunk of the games and matches already done?
Right now we're just really working on consistency. We seem to be a little up and down as far as we make great plays and then we have little lulls sometimes. And we need to, be a little more consistent and play a little more evenly the entire time, I guess.
How does Southeast Kansas volleyball kind of treat you as far as the schedule and preparing you for postseason? You look at different areas of the state and where their strengths are at. How would you evaluate the competition there in Southeast Kansas?
Sometimes you never know from year to year what you're going to get because, it's just like any other small school. And, you have cycles of athletes come in and out. And so they can have a really great year and then turn around the next year and maybe not be so great or, have a class come in that's very talented. And so it's really hard to tell from year to year what we're going to see. And so this year, I think probably our schedule overall is more, I guess, competitive or even than what it has been in past years. Um, there's several teams, that are, making improvements and getting better and better. And so we should have several, good matches.
How did you end up at Neodesha? Kind of take me through your path and how you ended up with the streaks.
Well, I was teaching math at Hutchinson Community College, and my husband Darren was hired as a pilot down here at Cessna. And he came home one night and said, "Hey, we're moving to Independence." And I was thinking Independence, Missouri, and I was like, "Yahoo!" And so he said, "No, Independence, Kansas." And to be honest, I'd never really been very much to this corner of the state. I grew up in Western Kansas in Stockton and went to college at Fort Hays. And so most of my time was right around that area. And we've been down here for 21 years now. We've raised our family down here, and I've been at Neodesha the entire time. And so I guess this is what we call home now.
Were you coaching before you made that move down to Independence? Had you kind of dabbled with coaching prior to that?
I did. I coached at Ellis and I coached at lacrosse for a year, mostly at Ellis. And I wasn't, obviously wasn't coaching at the JUCO, but when I got down here and the kids got just a little bit older and I decided to get back into it and started coaching, I think in 2010 and have coached volleyball ever since.
What initially piqued your interest in coaching? What inspired you to start coaching?
I grew up around it my entire life. My dad was a principal and teacher, and he was a basketball coach. And I grew up going to practice with him every single day and, just idolized all those girls and grew up around sports. My brothers were both big into athletics. And so just grew up going to games every Tuesday and every Friday my entire life. And so it just seemed like a natural, progression into being a teacher and being a coach.
When you arrived first at Neodesha, like how did you build up that culture or kind of maintain it? What was kind of your first steps early on in your career with the Streaks?
The girls, we've been very fortunate that we've had very good girls that were very interested in volleyball, and we were lucky enough to have some success in volleyball that made them want to get into it even more. We have a lot of our girls play club volleyball in the off season, and I think that has really helped develop our program. And so almost all of our girls that are playing right now have played in clubs since they were in, seventh and eighth grade. And so I think that was when we saw a huge change from just being competitive to being, so, doing really well and being able to advance in the postseason.
You bring up club volleyball, and how does that overlap with high school volleyball? And what have you kind of seen that relationship, especially with the some of the seasons overlapping?
Most of our girls play, they usually start club in usually December and they play until about April. And so it makes them really busy because all of our girls, for the most part, play basketball, which they do in small schools. And so they're trying to juggle basketball and trying to juggle club volleyball on the weekends. And so it definitely keeps them busy. It keeps them on the run.
Have you seen though that like club volleyball and high school volleyball they coexist pretty well? Because I know sometimes that you'll run into schedule conflicts, but for Neodesha, have you seen it balance pretty well?
Most of our girls don't play any club during our season at all. They play in the winter, and then they usually play with our team in the summer. And so we play in summer leagues and we play in day tournaments and stuff like that together during the summer. But they kind of go off on their own during the winter and play in different clubs.
When you look at developing players, coach, joined with Jodi Stover, head coach in Neodesha volleyball, is there a certain position that's harder than another one to develop for your team? Like any specifics?
I think it is. I mean, you can't teach height and you can't teach
Sure.
great, you can work on jumping ability, but for the most part, they either have it or they don't. And like I said, we've been blessed that we've had some pretty darn good athletes go through our program, and they have kind of pulled the other ones along with them, that they work hard and they take it very seriously, and that makes the others buy in and try to do the same.
What about a setter? So say if you don't have a true setter and you're trying to develop that going into the season or maybe during the summer, what's that challenge like and just trying to develop that setter?
you know um that's happened several times. And I had someone tell me a long time ago to look at your girls and pick your very best athlete, and she's going to be your setter because she's the quarterback of your team. She's the one that's going to be setting the tone and setting the pace and all that kind of stuff. And I've always kind of lived and died by that rule of I pick out who I think is our best athlete or who is our best leader and athlete, and they are our setter. And sometimes, this year included, they may have never set before, but they learn it. They have to learn it pretty darn fast. And, we've done pretty well with it.
What's that relationship like with your setter and how do you develop that or does that come naturally?
You know, for the last, well, since 2018, or not, no, it would have been about 2019. My daughters have been our setters. And so I have four daughters, and they have been I've been fortunate enough that they love volleyball and they've been, pretty darn good athletes. And so um I won't lie that we have spent a lot of time in the gym working on setting and working on what we want. And I was fortunate enough that they were willing to buy in and put in the time.
Your approach as far as like once play starts and calling out plays, or maybe it's a quick set or a combination, whatever it may be, how often is that solely on the setter after, the serve, or do you have something scripted? Okay, hey, this is what we're doing, but how much balance is that between you and the setter calling that stuff out?
A lot of the times it is our setters making the decisions on the fly because they're the ones that, you never know. Sometimes that not sure where the pass is going to go or where the ball is going to be. And I trust them to make good decisions as to uh, what are our strengths and where the ball needs to go. And if I obviously feel free to tell them this is what I want to happen, and they try their hardest to make that happen for me. But for the most part, I let them play and let them make the decisions.
Anything that stands out when you're trying to find those mismatches and you said, trying to find your advantages, maybe your opponent's weaknesses, but when you're setting something up, because I think a lot of people when they think about volleyball coach, they don't necessarily think about plays. That's like you set it, you set up your teammate and they try to, kill it as hard as they can. But when you are trying to set something up, like how much strategy goes into that, just trying to avoid those blockers?
We're trying to always, find weaknesses in the other where we see if there's a, open spot in the defense or there's something that we can exploit. And we have things obviously that we like to do that we kind of rely on or we go to over and over. But for the most part, we're just always trying to see openings and trying to see things that we can try to take advantage of.
You go, continuing in your career, how much education do you do, even on a yearly basis or whenever you kind of check in just to make sure you're, kind of staying fresh on the game of volleyball, but just continuing to grow as yourself as a coach?
I wish I could do more of that. For the most part, I just rely on, watching videos and watching other coaches and watching, there's tons of stuff of clips and things that like that you can watch all the time. And so I pick up a lot of just ideas, and even for new drills or just for things, to try, um, just by watching stuff on the computer.
Anyone that you reached out to, especially early on in your career, for advice?
Let's see. You know, when I first started out, um, I just kind of jumped in feet first, and I hadn't been coaching for a while, and I had coached at Ellis and had coached some other few places, but jumping into a head coaching spot, this was my first head coaching spot, and it was definitely a learning experience. That was true. I was very fortunate to have some assistant coaches that had some experience that could help. And for the most part, I was just kind of learning on the go as we went.
That's worked out really well. Coach, appreciate your time and best of luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That is Jodi Stover, the head coach at Neodesha Volleyball. That'll do it for our quality time interview.